Domo. Shishio Genhaku here. Today we're gonna narrate a excerpt from a book that I'm currently reading called Talking to Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. Please enjoy. Florentino Aspilaga's final posting was in Bratislava, in what was then Czechoslovakia. It was 1987, 2 years before the Iron Curtain fell. Aspilaga ran a consulting company called Cuba Technica, which was supposed to have something to do with trade. It did not. It was a front. Aspilaga was a high-ranking officer in Cuba's General Directorate of Intelligence. Aspilaga has been named Intelligence Officer of the Year in the Cuban Spy Service in 1985. He had been given a handwritten letter of commendation from Fidel Castro himself. He had served his country with distinction in Moscow, Angola, and Nicaragua. He was a star. In Bratislava, he ran Cuba's network of agents in this region. But at some point during his steady ascent through the Cuban intelligence service, he grew disenchanted. He watched Castro give a speech in Angola, celebrating the communist revolution there, and had been appalled by the Cuban leader's arrogance and narcissism. By the time of his posting in Bratislava in 1986, those doubts had hardened. He planned his defection for June 6, 1987. It was an elaborate inside joke. June 6 was the anniversary of the founding of the Cuban Ministry of Interior, the all-powerful body that administered the country's spy service. If you work for the General Directorate of Intelligence, you would ordinarily celebrate on June 6. There would be speeches, receptions, ceremonies in honor of Cuba's espionage apparatus. Aspilaga wanted his betrayal to sting. He met up with his girlfriend Marta in the park in downtown Bratislava. It was Saturday afternoon. She was Cuban as well, one of thousands of Cubans who were guest workers in Czech factories. Like all Cubans in her position, her passport was held at the Cuban government offices in Prague. Aspilaga would have to smuggle her across the border. He had a government-issued Mazda. He removed the spare tire from the trunk, drilled an air hole in the floor, and told her to climb inside. Eastern Europe at that point was still walled off from the rest of the continent. Travel between East and West was heavily restricted, but Bratislava was the only short drive from Vienna, and Aspilaga had made the trip before. He was well known at the border and carried a diplomatic passport. The guards waved him through. In Vienna, he and Marta abandoned the Mazda, hailed a taxi, and presented themselves at the gates to the United States Embassy. It was Saturday evening. The senior staff was all at home, but Aspilaga did not need to do much to get the guards' attention. I am a case officer from Cuban intelligence. I am an intelligence commandante. In the spy trade, Aspilaga's appearance at the Vienna embassy is known as a walk-in. An official from the intelligence service of one country shows up unexpectedly on the doorstep of the intelligence service of another country. And Florentino Tiny Aspilaga was one of the great walk-ins of the Cold War. What he knew of Cuba and its close ally, the Soviet Union, was so sensitive that twice after his defection, his former employers at the Cuban spy service tracked him down and tried to assassinate him. Twice he slipped away. Only once has Aspilaga been spotted. It was by Brian Latell, who ran the CIA Latin American office for many years. Latil got a tip from an undercover agent who was acting as Aspilaga's go-between. He met the go-between at a restaurant in Coral Gables, just outside Miami. There he was given instructions to meet in another location, closer to where Aspilaga was living under his new identity. Latil rented a suite in a hotel somewhere anonymous and waited for Tiny to arrive. "He's younger than me. I'm 75. He's by now probably in his upper 60s, Latil remembered in the meeting. But he's had terrible health problems. I mean, being a defector living with a new identity, it's tough. Even in his diminished state, though, it was obvious what Aspilaga must have been like as a younger man. Latil says, charismatic, slender, with a certain theatricality about him. A taste for risks and grand emotional gestures. When he came into the hotel suite, Aspilaga was carrying a box. He put it down on the table and turned to Latil. "This is a memoir that I wrote soon after I defected," he said. "I want you to have this." Inside the box, in the pages of Aspilaga's memoir, was a story that made no sense. Yeah, I'm kind of like a history nerd in myself. I should have narrated it with more enthusiasm and confidence. Maybe next time I will do better. Thank you for listening. My name is Shishio Genhaku, and Genhaku off.